Hello, and welcome to the Breachburnt podcast. We're very excited to talk with you today about a new edition of Malifaux that's up and coming. Today we've got the usual crew and welcoming on Cole and Trish. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, it's Trisha.
Trisha, excuse me.
Yes.
Well, welcome, Trisha.
And yeah, we're going to be talking about the Honeypot and Nightmare cruise today, and maybe a little bit of a hypothetical game and kind of how the standard game flow works. So, yeah, take it away, Brian.
We are going to go ahead and dive in today. Diving into the beta, what to expect and what to realize when getting in, starting from the very beginning. Thankfully, just a shout out to everybody, but remember, this is a beta. If you've never been part of a previous beta, if you've never part of the third edition beta, things change rapidly. Things will change from this recording. We were recording on the 14th of April, and I almost guarantee before this hits next Monday when things come out, things we say here will be wrong. They will have changed. So, don't get too hurt if something you really like or if something's overpowered or something just blows you out of the water, because the reason for the beta is to make sure when it hits real edition, it's nice, it's balanced, it's smooth, and everything's worked out. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Oh, I think you hit it. It's everything will change if it needs to, and the best way to make that happen is report your games to Wyrd and help test it.
And a big thank you to Wyrd. I know everyone here is a big thanks because we got a chance to dive in a little bit earlier than everyone else. So you're going to hear a lot of our thoughts and our initial impressions on it. Just kind of give you an idea of a mindset going into this. So, with that, how does 4th edition play? How does it feel? What are the changes to look out for? That's the initial part here we're going to talk about. You've probably heard by now, since we are opening day, a fair number of other podcasts mention things. Now we're just going to give kind of our impressions on everything you've heard about, rules-wise, crew-wise, all that kind of stuff. So, I know for me, they already put out a big release about the flow. That was one of the very first things they talked about. But it is a faster game. Once you get the rules down, it does feel faster. That was the very first thing that I did realize after a couple times playing is, oh, wait, it's only, how long did we spend on that game?
Well, and not even just time on the clock, the pacing of the game feels faster. There's a lot of flips, like damage flips or shockwaves, things that cause a lot of cards to flip that just aren't happening anymore. So in early test games, I found both myself and my opponent kind of waiting for the other person to flip a card that wasn't coming. We're like, oh, that duel's already over. We just figure out what happened. There's a lot of small trims that end up with a big kind of add-on effect on the whole game.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I've gone to start a game and go, let's flip for an... Oh, wait, there's no initiative flip. Nope. I guess we just start. We got cards. I guess it's your go.
or waiting for your opponent to stone for cards and nope, you don't. You draw your 7 and go.
Yeah, not only do you save time on the card flips, but then also on the decision-making process. Do I cheat? Do I not cheat? Things of that nature. Do I stone before I do it? I can't stone for suits anymore. So it cuts down not only on the card flipping, but on the decision-making process that would be involved in the card flips.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of cool things that they did add in. If gut reactions are that if I can't stone for cards, if I can't stone for suits, how am I going to... Is it just all random? They have built in a lot of mechanics to really help with that. I know the empower mechanic has been great in a chance to kind of even things out in terms of I need a suit, I can get a suit. There is some card draw that they've built into almost every keyword, or at least currently they're working on, so that you can kind of refresh your hand. And that also feels good. That feels tactically good, because when do you activate the models that have the card draw? When do you empower? Your low cards have uses, so your hand disappears. I don't know about you guys, but your hand goes.
Yeah, it goes fast, and I think Empower is by far my favorite part of the new edition. It makes every card in your hand useful instead of, well, I guess I can discard this for something, or at least it's out of my deck next turn. Like, no, you're probably going to use even every bad card every turn.
Yeah, it's been like, playing our normal like weekly 3E games while being in the beta. It's been like, man, I want this to be a rule so bad. I can't do it
Yeah,
yet.
it's hard to go back once you've played it. The other big thing, talking about change of expectations, is definitely damage versus survivability. They've changed a lot of what a normal damage. It's not damage tracks anymore. It's just damage. And defensive tech is much rarer and much more limited. Wound values did go up, but I think damage went up more. So you're going to see your models dying.
Don't
In
think
some
those
cases,
wound
a bit more.
14 models are going to stick around just because they have 14 wounds.
Right. If you put them out of position and your opponent really puts some resources into them, they're going to disappear. They did make minions specifically a little more durable compared to what they were in 3rd edition. So they're a little less just, oops, I got hit by one focus shot and now I'm dead. But those middle and high cost models, you definitely need to play them strategically to not just lose them.
Oh, and I mean, you said a big thing that people have probably heard by now, but focus. No damage flips, so you mean I don't have to worry about the I focus and one-shot a model for 7 damage anymore with these things?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, focus is still a thing. It's just a positive on the attack. You have to get that extra damage through raises, which, you can do, but if your opponent flips a reasonably high card, you're just going to do your base damage. You can't force through that severe or that red joker in hand.
Yeah, kind of touching on what Cole said, his favorite thing was Empower. I think my favorite game mechanic, all one game into this, is the new pass mechanic. And no pass tokens, no nothing. It's like if you had the same number of models or less, I pass. So I think that is going to be one of the things that is going to be used at a level that's when you first start out, you really can't take it into consideration, especially with how the next turn is determined who goes first by who had the last activation. The other person will have choice on that. So I think that whole pass mechanic that, as I dive deeper into that, I think is going to have a lot more depth to it than you first appear at looking at the rules.
There's a lot of depth, but the nice thing is there's, as far as I'm aware, no cards that mess with that mechanic. You don't get a, Yuko printing pass tokens and being toxic with that. It's purely based on models on the board, and it updates when things die. So you don't have that, like, I can't afford to hire cheap models because they're going to give up activation control. That's kind of been one of the things contributing to minions being terrible in 3rd edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you lose a model, your opponent's first activation, you didn't lose you lost an unactivated model, but you did lose activation control over it. So
right.
It's a little more. The tactics aren't, I need to kill something that's unactivated. It's more, I need to kill the strategic models that you're going to use to score.
Mm-hmm.
With that, I know we said things die and scoring, but there is a pressure and there is a speed to the game right from first activation. With needing to score, your strategy at least, turn 1, being 4 turns long now, you need to not sit in your own deployment. None of these strategies say you can usually just sit in your own deployment. You have to get out and go do things and interact with your opponent. So the dirtily cruise where I sit with Jedsa and build a bunch of life tokens and keep in my bubble, that thing doesn't happen nearly as much.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest thing to adjust to with the new scoring system, was how immediately you need to start working on points. If you played back in 2E, it was pretty much expected that turn 1 was purely set up. You'd never really interact with your opponent on the first turn. 3rd edition, we got a little bit better where there's some fights going on, but you can't score. You don't want to set up schemes too early and, give away more information. So it's kind of set up what you can, get damage in where you can. But you still kind of felt like you were waiting until turn 2 to really start playing the game and start scoring. That's out the window. You need to start right now. First activation, you got to get moving.
And yes, dropping a scheme for your AP is very important. Maybe sometimes even from your own deployment zone, because there is a lot of tacticality with the new schemes and stuff and how that's playing out, which I really like. So expect that when you're looking at things, it's going to be kind of confusing. The first time you play through the schemes and how that whole system rolls out, honestly, take it one scheme at a time. Don't worry what you're going into next. Just look at it as you want to at least score 1 point usually. So look at, can I achieve the first point thing? And go with that. Because you'll learn how it rolls after that, but your first game, getting used to the new scheme structure can be interesting. to say the least.
It's a huge change from any previous edition of Malifaux, so it's going to be new.
Because there's some that you can score from your deployment zone, but if you also score them from your deployment zone, they're worth less points, and usually that does not set you up for the turns to be able to score the additional points, because you're going to need to at least score 2 points once off of your schemes to get max points. So you're going to have to still get out of your deployment zone. You're still going to have to go interact. It kind of forces when are you going to take that fight, when are you going to go do there. It gives a lot of choice, in my opinion.
I do like the fact that each of the schemes does give you that option to score 2 points, because then that way, if you do have one turn where you don't score a point, you do have a chance to make up for it, as opposed to in a lot of instances in third edition, if you didn't score that reveal, by the last turn, you were basically out of that point. So it does give you that, I guess, potential for a catch-up mechanic.
Gives you a lot of flexibility. Like in one of the beta games that we played, I knew that Cole was going to attack my model, so I just picked the scheme that I got 1 point for him doing damage to my model.
Frame job.
Yeah. And so that was like, okay, I could try to wait and try to get the second point of this, or I could just try to get the first point and make up that second point later on in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that catch-up mechanic also extends to strategies. So there is some sort of thing built into all the strategies currently, as of recording, that allows you to never quite be out of the game, which I know was a complaint. I've been to some of the cons and hearing some of the things, and a lot of longtime players are like, well, I missed that one strategy point, turn 2, can I actually win? I'm against a good opponent, at least at my own skill level. I already feel like now I'm just playing to try to tie. It's very hard to feel like I can win once you get behind. I will say I've played multiple games, and even being behind, you actually have a slight advantage being behind, which allows you not only to catch up, but a good chance of winning. So if you are equal skill level, you could easily come back. I think skill's going to still be a huge part of it, and stronger players are still going to win, but don't count yourself out in these games, even if you're down 2 or 3 points, because you still cap out at schemes. A big thing I've seen, one player has scored all 5 of their scheme points by turn 3, so they're going to the last turn, they can't even score scheme points, they feel like they're ahead, but they've been behind on strat points, and it comes back at the end, the opponent scores 4 points the last turn, and wins. Things like that can happen.
With most of the strategies being double points on turn 4, playing to the end matters.
The last turn is super important. So I just wanted to make that clear, because I heard that a lot towards the end of 3rd edition. Even now, it's like, especially in tournament play, I can't really get back into it once I'm behind. But this edition you can. Stepping forward, another thing that to really expect is the amount of terrain and the type of terrain you need on the board. You've probably heard a lot, and you can see in some of the files, about an emphasis on terrain, verticality. There's a scale mechanic, there's a jump mechanic currently. All of these things are intentionally designed, and when you first look at your board, and we'll actually show a map that we played in our battle report that we're hopefully going to get out too, of a lot of terrain is on the board. There's a lot of solid blocking height terrain, and it doesn't actually interfere with the game. It adds another level of tactical deployment, because being up high can give you a lot of advantages. You get extra cover, damage reduction and stuff for being up high. Some schemes require you to be up high.
Some model abilities too.
Yeah, you have to go up or you have to go down on terrain. So take a look at that, and don't be afraid to throw out a bunch of terrain and see what fits. It's going to be different than what you're used to. You can't just throw some fences and some forests and like a building or two out there. You're going to want to have a good look at what terrain you're putting on the board to get a good feel of this edition.
Yeah, it will definitely, I think, affect how boards are made in the future, whereas before, especially with, snipers and stuff like that, most terrain that gave you elevation, most people would make it impassable, so you just couldn't put your sniper up there, and then some crews would not be able to do anything about it. Whereas now, there definitely are more advantages compared to the disadvantages, but as in one of the crews that we'll be going over, there is something to do about that, and it can be actually be advantageous for having your opponent's models up high. So yeah, definitely do not be afraid to use terrain with heights and being able to put models up there, because as we go over some of the rules and some of the other podcasts will be covering some of this stuff, you'll find that it will definitely add a new level and new dimension to your games.
Literally a new dimension.
Yeah, I would say currently, I think I have climbed terrain maybe 1 out of 5 games, and it's usually I gotta get on this box so my model can see all my other models.
In 3E, you're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
in 3E.
Yeah.
Like before, it's like 1 out of 5 games, I might climb on something just to have line of sight to my own stuff. I usually don't climb up there for anything else, but...
Yeah, I think not talking about times where you're like climbing over a fence or a box and it's functionally acting as severe terrain because you're subtracting movement to ignore it. The amount of times I've seen anyone really use vertical terrain beneficially has been, a handful of games in the last year.
I use it beneficially all the time, but I play all models that have flight, so...
Yeah, if you're a Nekama main, I guess that changes the map a little bit. But for the rest of the game, it's different.
Yeah, for the rest of us who don't have all flight, and it takes like 3 actions to get up to a building and on top of it, you can't charge, all that bullcrap. It does level the playing field a little bit. Severe terrain is also a lot more impactful, I want to say. I haven't noticed a lot of models that deal specifically with severe terrain.
There's a lot less unimpeded, but also movement across the game did go up. So you're being affected by it more, but it affects you less, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've felt it firsthand. So, other things, guys, that you can think of. I have a couple more things on my list, but anyone want to comment and jump in before I keep going down this list of expectations, things to worry about?
The big thing it's not so much an expectation of how the game's going to go, but something that I've really enjoyed about my games of 4th edition so far is a lot of the mechanics and rules that by the end of 3 kind of just feel like they were for the sake of themselves or getting in the way of the game have been removed. So to me it's a much more approachable, I don't want to say casual friendly game, because there's still a ton of depth, there's still a lot of game here, but there's little things that I would see newer players get caught up on that are just gone. So the big one obviously is damage flips. That was always kind of a weird thing to explain how they work. But little things like being able to move through your own models and see through your own models. There's a lot of little changes like that just make the game feel smoother and feel less like you're fighting the rules instead of your opponent, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, I also enjoyed how there's less having to do that simple math in your head, like how Cole touched on with damage flips. Okay, this is a 5 difference, this is a 6 difference, I'm a negative, I'm a straight. Like also now too with the tactical actions, almost all of them, it's just you have a TN. You don't have to figure, well, I'm stat 6, I need a 12. I need a 12.
Yeah, you're stat 0.
Yeah, now everything is pretty much stat 0, and it gives you a TN number. Now, some of the attack actions do have it, so you have to kind of figure that out, but it's taking that little bit of simple math out of the game. So now you just look at the TN and go, okay, I need a 6 or a 4 or whatever the case may be.
Well, and not having to do specifically the math of positives and negatives. Like, okay, I have hard to wound, but you focus, so now you're at a single negative. Like, that kind of math, taking that out of the game, I think, makes it a lot easier, too.
Yeah. Also, too, with summoning, now models that can be summoned have a summon target number right on their stat card. So when you go to summon, you can see, okay, I need a 7 for this one, a 9 for this one, an 11 for this one, instead of having, okay, I'm a stat 6, add 10 to the soul stone number, subtract to my stat, and this is what I need.
Right, like Trisha made the summon reference cards that Bigger Hat ended up modifying a little bit and hosting. So I've seen people in the wild using those. Those won't be needed this edition, which is really nice. But also, like so when you're summoning, you flip the card, see what you flipped, and then decide what you want to summon. That's another one of those little like quality of life things that there's no real reason it was one way or the other, but this is more friendly. It's more convenient. You can, not have to plan as much for that.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about keeping the highest card of the suit you need in your hand all game. You can see what you flip and go from there.
And what's nice is that in power, too. So if you have a low card of that suit, you can be like, I'm going to flip for it anyways, using this on power and see what I can get. Because I have the suit then, and hopefully I get high enough to get the good thing, but I have at least something low that I can get.
But yeah, if you only flip an 8, you're like, all right, well, I don't get a Joragumo, but at least I get this other thing, right?
It still doesn't feel like a wasted action completely.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of things on the rules, small things that you'll notice that will catch you off guard again. That first time you go to attack somebody and you realize, I have a high card in my hand, but they're in concealing terrain. I'm going to flip on an egg, but I can still hit you because I can still cheat on a negative. That's something that's in there right now, which is another reason why your cards are just going to fly out of your hand, because you realize, I can still hit you. I can still make this go.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like being able to cheat.
It also makes you use that terrain more effectively to hide behind the blocking terrain, to move around, to not sit out in the open thinking you're safe inside of a forest.
Right, because cover works in melee too, and it's just flat 1 damage reduction. So every model has armor if you're in the right spot.
Oh, okay. That's something I learned. I did not know that.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
so used to having covers only on gun actions.
Yeah, no, cover is just on attacks, full stop.
And any attack. It's actually the biggest part of keeping your models alive is finding the cover.
Yeah, positioning, like the micro positioning of angles and cover and what you're behind, I think matter quite a bit more. Because, cover in 3, sure, you get extra defense. Cool, they're attacking my willpower, that doesn't matter. It's a negative on damage, but they were probably already on a negative, so you could have ignored it and no difference really would have been made. It makes a difference in 4th.
Yeah, I really like that because as a Neverborn player, we were not blessed with almost any defensive abilities, so the only thing that I could use defensively was a wall in front of my model. So I do really like that that's rewarded now a lot more. I guess the other thing I would shout out is that terrain really does affect the game in a pretty substantial way. Incorporeal doesn't let you just ignore all terrain anymore. Because there were just some games where if you have flight or incorporeal, you just were at a really big advantage on some boards, and now everyone has to kind of play the same game, but it's also kind of refreshing because in theory vertical stuff was available in 3rd edition, but practically people just kind of ignored it. So I think that's all really cool.
Well, a lot of times it was ignored because it was kind of a gentleman's agreement not to treat this building as what it is, because the player who has a model with flight or a model that can deploy from shadows up there, that model's never going to get touched because the other person can't realistically get up there. Now every model in the game can meaningfully interact with terrain, so you are allowed to use it.
I think the first time I was playing against an opponent and I declared that I'm jumping across a gap to move to a new piece of vertical terrain, it threw my opponent off a bit, that I was, oh, wait, you can get over there. You don't have to walk down, walk across, walk back up.
Mm-hmm.
That opponent may have been cold, but...
it might have been.
No, overall, keep an open mind when it comes to all this stuff. It's going to take adjustments. I've had a number of games now in with this edition to get ready for this, and it feels really good once you just start letting yourself play it, to be honest. Like, it just feels good, and at least that's how I've been.
That's something I've noticed, because we've been playing 4th edition for quite some time now, so I'm getting to where I'm comfortable in it, and it hit a point where the rules kind of started settling down a little bit and got pretty close to what they are today. And I realized, man, this just feels like I'm playing Malifaux, but faster, but smoother. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is a new game, I don't like this. Like, there's a lot of changes, but once you actually get into it, in my opinion, it just feels like Malifaux faster. And I think that's probably what a lot of people are looking for, because I like crunchy, sloggy games, but 4-hour round does suck. And having to schedule tournaments so there's maybe a chance people finish their games also sucks. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and I was a person who really tried to get people to play 3rd edition, and I introduced a lot of people to the game. There were just a lot of points where somebody would try to do something, and I would say, you literally cannot do that. You have to walk it all back, and then we can figure out a way for you to do it. But things like being able to cheat on negatives just kind of lets you do the game plan. Sure, you're at kind of a disadvantage, but you can kind of still do your thing. And yeah, I think just the decision fatigue from 3rd was a real thing. I only went to 1 serious tournament, but I was brain dead after day 1, and then I went and played 2 or 3 more days of it, and I was just garbage by the end of it. And there's just so many decisions that are just eliminated. I think to the benefit of the game. So, yeah.
Well, and a lot of it was decisions that didn't matter. There's still important
for
decisions
sure.
you are making. It's not, it's not a beer and pretzels game now, I don't think.
Yeah,
but
totally.
It's just switched where the tactical decisions are being made. You don't have to spend 30 minutes figuring out how to one-shot something. Instead, it's when do I dive? When do I go attack this model? When do I commit? How cagey do I need to play? Do I need to run and go to a scheme, or do I need to go to the strat? Like, it's a lot about positioning. I think it's a lot of good things that you may have seen from other games that are out there. So I do think it's a great new evolution of Malifaux. I found a lot of tactical things I can do. I've been playing a lot of the Honeypot keyword, which we're going to talk about, and I will tell you, it feels good, and I still get that Malifaux vibe playing.
Yeah, I'm feeling fairly confident about this because for those who went from second edition to third edition, the leap in the playability of the game and just how much better the game got was tremendous. And if they increase the amount of enjoyment that we can get in the game from going from third edition to fourth edition by 50%, then this game is going to be in such a good spot going into this new edition that's why I'm so looking forward to it.
All right. Speaking of getting into it, then why don't we move on to kind of setting up a game? We kind of have one that Scott and I are going to play for this. This is going to be the map that we are using for it. Again, notice the amount of terrain. Notice the amount of cliffs. There is a lot going on. We're going to be doing flank for this. There's some severe. There's still concealing. But there's a lot of clumps. There's a lot of variations in terms of... I don't see a lot of sight lines that can go all the way across the board.
Yeah, almost none.
You can actually still pretty easily get through and make across the board, even without flight, even without any of that special stuff, because of the new mechanics with scale and jumping. I know with this one, I kind of set it up so most of the buildings are about 6 inches apart, so if you wanted to be tactical, most models could leap across. With the current rules, you can... I mean, technically, with the new leap, you can actually leap over other models that might be in the way, if they're underneath you. So, I don't know if you'll see some of that in our battle report, but just a quick overview of what you can kind of expect. I know I'm going to try to put out... The Breachburnt pod is going to try to put out a thing specifically on terrain. Hopefully that gets out there as well. So take a look for that. We're going to be doing Boundary Dispute for our thing. It's one of the new strategies out there. You'll notice in it, you can kind of read over it, but there is a catch-up mechanic in it. It is Kick the Can 4th edition. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. It's got the 4th edition flavor to it with how they're building the strategies, but functionally, yeah, it's take interacts, move the marker. Don't let your opponent move theirs as far as they want to.
So if you've played 3E, you'll at least have a gist of what we're talking about, what you need to do. And most of the strategies you'll see, you may have already heard them all. They have some sort of semblance to something we've already done, just modernized to 4th edition.
Yeah, there's nothing groundbreaking in the strategies, which I don't think is a bad thing.
Yeah, and one of the things I noted, because this was the first strategy I played, is that the placement of the marker seems really far at 6 inches, but then that kind of gets into where you're scoring turn one. So you need to be able to throw those markers a little bit farther than in 3rd edition, where you had basically 2 turns to get into that scoring position. So this does seem like very, very far, but when you see the speed of models and stuff like that, it will make sense for you.
Yeah. And another kind of change to be on the lookout for is basically everything in 3rd edition strategy-wise was you score if you have more something than you have points already. And a lot of the 4th edition ones are having more than your opponent. So instead of that progressive difficulty, it's more based on what you and your opponent have done.
And you do score usually for tying, which keeps things going through, which is also kind of nice, because there's a lot of, I need to at least catch back up to you and get equal so that I don't fall behind. There is pressure to keep ahead of your opponent with the strategy. We chose these 3 randomly. I think there's 14 as of
12.
when we're doing this.
There's 12.
12. So there's 12 current schemes. Actually, I would kind of suggest these if you want to try them out, because they kind of have different chains as well. Try to pick some that we were going to do that would go in different directions. So you'll notice Scout the Rooftops is one of the ones that you have to have vertical terrain, search the places. Any terrain, and Frame Job is one of those where I'm going to rush up and go get into action. And, oh, look, I'm going to feed you this allure model. I'm going to bait you into this, and you took the bait. And now I'm going to get a point.
Yeah, and it's something like, okay, my model jumped across the board turn 1, got on some terrain, dropped a ski marker. Oh, you're doing Scout the Rooftops. Or are you setting up a ski marker for the second part of Frame Job? It brings back... I'm noticing more of like the 2E bluff style schemes than we had in 3E, which I'm incredibly excited for.
Or like with the game that me and Cole played that I mentioned earlier, I had Teddy on his side of the board in a very dangerous place. So I decided to take Frame Job so that I was at least going to get a point out of losing Teddy.
And that was specifically taking it turn 2, because the whole evolving scheme thing that 4th edition's doing lets you pivot your game plan. You don't have to make all your decisions at the beginning of the game. You're able to, change it up on the fly.
More than one game now has been, well, I thought I was going to do this scheme. That didn't work out. Let's ditch that, go on to the next chain and score 2 points for this next one, and catch back up that way. So these are just what we started with. I think this is a good, if you're trying out for your first game, a good idea to try out. But this is what we did for our kind of battle that we're doing. So what are we going to do? I am going to play Honeypot for this, and we're going to start getting into the nitty-gritty of the crew. You're going to see crew cards, and as a point of reference, the Wyrd team is working very hard to get these out into a finished state. You are going to be seeing beta versions of these cards. You're going to actually see 2 different versions of the beta cards that we've been playing with and using. So the Honeypot's going to look a little more like the finished cards. The Nightmare are in working cards. And honestly, that's because, as we said, you're going to probably see changes from these cards and things we talk about a week from now when this hits live. So, like I said, we're going to say some things. We're going to go over some models, and if they don't look exactly the same, it's because they're making those improvements to the game.
Yeah. That being said, these crews have been in testing for a while. They probably won't change monumentally. Like, models are still going to do what the models do. It is just going to be different how they do it.
There might be a little TN difference or a skill check difference, but yes, these ones that are coming into the open beta are pretty fleshed out. All right, so we're going to start with Lynch 1, and you've heard about it by now, but every crew, based on which title master you get, is going to get that crew card. For Lynch, it's a Wildcard, roll the dice. This happens to be my favorite version of Lynch. Because of that crew ability, trump cards, once for activation, this model may add a suit to the top of from the top of their discard. Again, it feels like Honeypot. It feels like Malifaux. It feels like Jacob Lynch. I'm getting that deck manipulation, and I'm not actually taking extra time to figure things out. I'm not having to reset the top of my deck every activation. This is, oh, it's sitting there? Cool. Now I'm going to capitalize on that tome sitting on the top of my deck. Or I'm going to cheat this, and then it's sitting there for the next time. Some card draw with this version as well. And what I really like about these cards, if they haven't been shown so far, is that the crew card has the reference for exactly what you need to worry about for your
opponent.
For your opponent, yes. I mean, yeah, your opponent. But for Lynch, Brilliance is actually, I think, and I'm going to talk about this a lot, best used defensively. Honeypot models being able to heal one currently when they cheat Fate is very clutch. when your model they think they're going to die, and, oh no, I got one more hit point because I'm just going to cheat. It comes in handy. So kind of what Title 1 does, you're going to see a lot of extra suits, you're going to see that Brilliance, and a little more card draw than the other version. Lynch
what's
himself,
really nice too with the reference cards is, I know for people when you play against someone, especially if they've never seen the master that you're playing, and you would, explain to them, okay, this is what this master does, and, in general broad sweeping terms. And now you're giving another tool that you could say, okay, well, here's my reference card on this title, and this is kind of basic things that he does, and the kind of things you need to look out for that the tokens he'll be passing out to you that can be a detriment, or if I'm taking it on my own models, what benefits I get from those tokens.
Yeah, and knowing or being able to see right at the start of the game what what abilities your entire opponent's crew has, and the abilities that some of them give them to every model, some of them give them to only unique models, so non-minions essentially. But you read one card and you can see a significant chunk of what the crew has in it, which is really cool.
A lot of the play style, at least.
Right.
Lynch won. Least a couple of the guys here have played into Lynch as I was prepping for this. I've been playing him. Don't Bite the Hand is really nice. It's again that honeypot mechanic, rigging the deck side of sort of stuff, deck manipulation, where I'm controlling the house is going to win. So no cheating against Lynch if you got Brilliance. He's got an 8-inch aura, but auras aren't fully prevalent. But within 8 inches, if an enemy model cheats, you get that Brilliance, which helps the Don't Bite the Hand. And then very fluffy still. The None for Me, Jacob Lynch carries over he doesn't really like Brilliance. He doesn't do his own drugs. I'm going to pass it off.
Yep. One thing with auras, auras as a term are gone. They're just effects with range. A new rule, though, is if it doesn't specify, you do need line of sight. So you would still treat this just like an aura in 3. It's within 8 inches and line of sight. It's just implied you need line of sight if it doesn't say otherwise.
The good news is you can still see through your
considering
models.
too, when you'll see a lot of things referencing tokens, you don't build up tokens. You either have one or you don't. You don't get multiples of that token. So if you do use it or spend it or it gets taken off you, it's gone. So it's an either or. It's not a multiplicity you could get burning or poison in 3rd edition, and you have burning 12. And in this one, it's an either or.
You either have burning or you don't.
Correct.
Yeah. So when his anti-up attack, if you're taking a look at things, target gets a Brilliance token. It's a 3 damage attack base. You're going to get to give them that Brilliance. If they already got it, well, you're not stacking it. But there is some cool interactions with things like the no turning back. So if they already had the Brilliance, so you can give it once with the first attack, and then the next attack you can get that ram trigger to do 2 additional damage on it. So there is that emphasis on getting it out there and reusing it. The Compulsive Gambler, I think, is the secret sauce to Lynch one. It's got a mulligan. Hopefully, people have covered the Soulstone drain abilities by now, but if you haven't noticed it, the mulligan is draining a Soulstone trigger. But more deck manipulation for Lynch. I'm going to reset my hand and do you damage. It's the secret sauce. It's once per activation, but again, it really feels like Honeypot. It feels like Lynch almost kind of closer to what he was in 2E to me, with some of the cheating focus compared to full deck rigging when you get to things as we go on. But Premonition's great. Again, it's just quick peeks at the top of the deck. It's not rigging everything. It's not old ways every single model. And then he can support as well with his tactical action. Anything you guys seen from Scott from Lynch 1 that you would say that he's really good at?
Honestly, I would say he's very survivable. With the whole, if the opponent has a Brilliance, they can't cheat. You can discard Brilliance to heal and or reduce damage, however you want to put it. But yeah, I'd say he's a little bit more survivable. Now, the 14 wounds, seems like a lot, but it's not in this edition. 14 wounds can get blown through relatively quickly. One thing to note on his attack actions, his 2 attack actions he has a little star thing. So if it hasn't been talked about, or maybe you haven't heard in other podcasts, there are basically 3 types of attacks. There's scratches, gun into actions, and then the one on Jacob Lynch's is basically the magic attack. So that is basically another range, and now it's actually classified as a magic attack as before. In 3rd edition, you had gun actions and what I would actually call magic attacks, but they were just ranged actions that were not guns. So they do now specify that it is actually a certain type of attack.
Yeah, and this isn't specific to Lynch, but one thing that is going to catch people up is remember to look at the damage stat for your actions, because especially actions that do stuff, it can be easy to forget that it actually does do damage.
Yeah.
There's a few actions in the game where it's like, remove a target off your target. And it's like, oh, that's a pretty cool action. Oh, wait, it also has a damage 2 associated with it that I forgot about.
Yep.
That's a big change. Anyone who's, used to 2E, 3E, where, deal 2, 3, 4 damage is right in the description. That's gone.
Moving on to Lynch 1's Totem, which is Hungering Darkness, version 1. They are unique per title.
Which is clearly a work in progress name. They will come up with a real name for that.
Yes, like I said, still beta cards. So the untitled Hungering Darkness, Bound of Brilliance. This is very similar to your Obey Huggy that you have out right now, that you see kind of in M3. It can target friendly models, and if it, thing to harken back to, as a reminder, attack actions can only target enemies unless it specifically states in the action. No more hitting your own models willy-nilly to give shove aside and pushes and, so unless it says it like this Bound of Brilliance, you can't target your own models. So keep that in mind. A decent Huggy. He's got the resupply on his action, which is kind of where I was talking about. A lot of crews have some sort of card draw. A lot of times you kind of see it on the totem. And you notice it's draw 1 card and currently get 2 cards from your discard. So it's a 3-card action for a Soul Stone. So I've been using him. He's been great to be super support. Yeah, he can do some damage, but out of activation abilities with Bound of Brilliance and card draws kind of what I find this guy to be good.
Yep, you'll see resupply or tap the ley line in most crews across the game right now, and yeah, almost always on totems. And resupply in 3E seems, other than the fact it just draws a card for an action and a stone, seems kind of meh. But when you remember those 1 to 5s are your empower cards, that suddenly gets a little bit spicier, because you can, if you don't draw the cards you need for certain suits, you don't have the ability to stone for them anymore. You can't stone for cards to try again, but you can wait for you to flip enough cards for you to find, that low crow you need, resupply with Huggy, and then now you have it kind of deterministically. You don't have to get lucky, as much as it seems like you're going to have to.
Well, and theoretically, if you don't, get luck, as like this one says once per turn, but the lightning bolt is no longer innately once per turn. So if you have an ability that isn't listed as once per turn, you could just keep trying until you get what you want, theoretically.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that. The lightning bolt, which was formerly known as the free action, is now the signature action, and can be used multiple times. You can use it once as your signature action, and then once as your 1 or even second AP to do that action 3 times.
Yep. And as long as the action itself doesn't say once per activation, once per turn.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Correct.
Also, back to go ahead.
On the master card and the totem card, if you may have noticed that there's no cost on there. So if there ever would need something that would need a cost, all masters are considered 10 stones and all totems are considered 5 stones. If there would ever need to be a cost involved in, let's say, scoring or something like that. So good to keep in mind that even though there is no cost, that there is a mechanic in the basic rules that give them a cost.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the new Terrifying? Because it's very different than 3rd edition.
I really like it.
I know you do.
No more having to sit there and flip and just automatically fail. I'm okay with this, having to play into a lot of reses.
Well, I love it in my Dreamer crew, since almost all the models I like to take are Terrifying 6, and there's hardly any one that has a willpower higher than 6.
Yeah.
Most crews are going to have no more than 1 model with willpower 7, if they have any at all. So that's basically an ability that says raise all of your defensive stats 1 for the rest of the game.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's another example of just making the game a lot faster. You don't have to flip for Terrifying. You don't have to consider cheating it and all of that. It's just you have 1 less willpower skill. God, I almost said stat.
Yeah, we have been saying stat a lot, but it is skill now in 4th edition. So
some habits are going to die real hard.
The only thing I was going to mention to harken back to is we're talking about that signature action for Lynch 1. That draw a card and give a enemy model brilliance is a signature for a stone. So if you got the stones, if you have been dying or still have some left over, I had an activation one time where I just popped that off with Huggy twice with that and a resupply. I spent 3 stones on an activation with Huggy to refill my hand and give out some brilliance.
It's what 5 cards for 1 activation?
Yeah, 5 cards, 1 activation.
That feels like Lynch.
So going on to Lynch 2, which is different by a fair amount. So the house always wins is their crew ability. So you're going to lose that, what I was just talking about, that card draw. Currently it's got with interest. So it's kind of like Sharpened Brilliance, if you've seen those triggers in 3E. But it's built in on every model you have. And you can still declare Sharpened Brilliance. So if you have Brilliance and they have Brilliance, you can get a +2 damage. So this is the I'm going to beat your face in version of Lynch.
Well, and this is exactly what we were talking about with the crew cards. You can look at just the Roll the Dice crew card or the House Always Wins crew card and see right away how they're going to play differently. Lynch 1 is all about card manipulation and draw and things like that, whereas Lynch 2, just from this one card, you can tell he's about to beat down.
Their special crew action is Pound of Flesh, a 3 damage irreducible attack.
Exactly.
That any unique model could do.
Now, it
So
costs a
Kitty can
stone,
come
but
through.
that's a pretty scary attack.
Yeah.
So Lynch himself, dark bet. He's had too much of a taste of his own drugs. So he's got delirium now, which has changed a bit. So notice you can actually get some extra movement by removing the brilliance, which is honestly pretty great. Luck Thief, again, no healing off of Luck Thief, because healing's been reduced kind of across the board in a lot of ways in M4, but you still get all those positives down to negatives, so your opponent doesn't want to empower. They can't build in suits with empower when they're trying to attack Lynch, because they're just going to be then on negatives.
Unless they're willing to cheat, because, again, that's a thing you can do now.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of a great defense tech, to be honest.
Yep, absolutely.
And then get into that beatdown area, Devil's Deal, 3 damage melee with all in, sacrificing himself to do extra damage, cashing out, and a little bit of healing. So he loves his drugs, and he loves to beat down. He's got some mobility with his tactical action Looming Eclipse, and his signature is actually to maneuver enemy models. Again, this is why I said, remember that attacks are only at enemies unless they say so. So don't think you can use Chasing Losses to move your own models. You can't do that anymore unless it says it. So, but it is great at a stat 7 to bring a model into position out of cover or move them off a ledge to have them fall. Any number of good ways to put them in position. And then there's a Summon Huggy trigger, a Brilliance trigger, and then a Heal trigger.
Yeah, moving someone 5 inches out of position and then summoning a Huggy in base contact with them, or within 2 of them, is that's pretty okay.
Yeah, especially if you're pulling them off some terrain, you can do some extra damage.
Right.
And then I know, James, you got the raw end of the Devil's Deal a couple times in the game we played. That all-in and the ability on the crew card to remove some brilliance.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely strong. I will say I tactically fed Teddy to you to distract you from me scoring points. But yeah, that ability is very, very strong. Hayredden definitely was, the Splat Batman back in 3rd edition. And yeah, being able to do really high
that's a good
mid
comparison
damage.
for this version of Lynch, where he give up his own wounds to do a whole lot to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Keeping on the kind of damage over, survivability, Huggy still got his Terrifying, but this time he's got no Incorporeal, and instead has a Demise to hand out some Brilliance. Mangle and Shimmer Lungs, which you'll see across a couple of models. An 8-inch magic attack. Key thing with this one, which I like, is the target and models within 1 inch. This one doesn't say enemy models with 1 inch, because my models love Brilliance too, so if I'm getting into melee, I love handing my own models Brilliance because it's extra health. Every time I give them and they cheat, that's more health for me.
And this is a good example of models that have signatures that you're likely to take more than once. Across the game, things like Flurry or whatever the gun equivalent of it was that I forget the name of.
Rapid Fire?
Yeah, Rapid Fire. Instead of that being a front of card ability, now it's just their signature. So you can just attack a 3rd time if you want.
Of note, if they haven't talked about it already, you can have more than one signature. It doesn't mean you get to do 2 free actions. It's one of those you get to do as like a free action for that turn as your free 3rd AP. Again, he's still got the resupply, but all in, built in on this Huggy again too, or not built in, but on that Shimmer Lungs and a Hole in the World, which tactically is amazing to misplace your opponent and maybe put him next to an ally, so put him right in front of Jacob Lynch. Not that I may have already done that to Dreamer.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very rude. Why would you do that to that good boy?
Sometimes he just needs. Oh, we're gonna move past that. We're gonna say something bad.
Brian is not a nice person.
Corporeal punishment is sometimes needed for a dreamer, specifically. Diving into the crew. Gweneth Maddox, the first of the henchmen from Honeypot. You'll see she's got that Soulstone trigger for Unimpressed. She's got that Luck Thief, and Stack the Deck. So another good reason to have Brilliance on your own models. If they're targeted, just remove it to get a positive. On the flip, get that defensive focus, basically. Card Shark has a melee attack, and she's got the same ante-up that Lynch 1 has, with some different triggers. So you can kind of look at her card right away, and since she's got damage 3 on there, she's going to want to usually be beating face. She doesn't have those low attack damages on the high model. She's got Premonition on Card Shark, which is amazing, considering she also has a built-in look at the top card of your deck and your opponent's, is great. And then her signature, which isn't once per activation, but you will do it every single time you activate her. Look at the top 4 cards of yours, and pick what you want. Put them on top in any order. So instead of rig the deck, Gwen gets to kind of do it, and it's a once of right on top. Nothing going into the hand, none of that stuff. But, hey, I have 4 weeks on hand on the top of my deck. I don't like those. Let's try getting something else. Let's discard all of those. Or I'm searching for that one high card, that severe, that 12 of tomes that's in the top 4. That's my attack. So, very reliable.
So this is the first henchman we're seeing. One of the cool new things, I think, in 4th edition is Assume Leadership, or whatever the name of it is. Another one of those catch-up mechanics where if you lose your master early, at the start of the next turn, you can spend a stone to give one of your henchmen a 3rd action every turn. So anyone that has the henchman tag can end up with more actions later in the game, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and just make sure, though, that if you have multiple henchmen, you can't do it to multiples. There can only be one in the henchmen.
Right. Yeah, you pick one. But giving one to, beater Gweneth over here might be a reasonable choice.
A very reliable beater with that hit jackpot.
Yeah.
After Gwen, she's 8 cost. Let's go into Kitty. Miss Incorporeal herself. She's still got flight, so she still can get around. Has drawn to Brilliance, so very similar-ish to what you see in M3E. And you'll actually notice that a lot of models kept their flavor of what they were doing, but their actions have just been modified for 4E and kind of streamlined. You're not going to see 30 actions on their card, but the flavor of them is in 2 or 3 actions. So she still has that moving with Drawn to Brilliance. She still has this time a signature to move herself, and she's got an attack. And this is the first time we've seen a raise value of 3. Don't mistake that the first time I did to say that you automatically get 3 raises.
No, that's not what that means.
I made that mistake my first game thinking, oh, cool. I have 3 raises if I hit with this. That's just plus 3 damage. No, it's for every 3 instead of every 5 difference. You're going to get that extra raise. So she can still get a lucky, spike in there. But Kitty kind of keeps on being the support role and scheming role.
Yeah, and just touch on what raises are. Whenever you win a duel by 5 and increments of 5, some actions can give you certain benefits. On basics, any non-magic attack, so a gun or scratch, you would get an additional +1 damage. So at a win of 5, a win at 10, you would go up +1. If you won by 10, you get +2. And red jokers are an automatic raise. And in her attack, it would be in increments of 3. So if she won by 3, it'd be +1, won by 6, +2, won by 9, +3. So just even though there are those straight damage numbers, those can be affected by the dual total on how much damage you can do on the non-magic attack.
And they happen more often than you probably would think if you're just reading cards and haven't played any games yet. You end up going through your cards pretty quick. Being able to stop every single attack from getting any edges is difficult.
Raises, not edges.
Raises.
Oh, yeah, raises. Damn it.
And when we get to our next crew, they have a mechanic to help add raises onto it. So, but we'll get to that when we get to the really good crew that we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
That other crew.
They're kind of a nightmare.
Yeah, they are.
Ha.
Wow. We're getting to the dad puns now. We're getting into it.
Hey, we made it an hour.
I know. Well, it's because we have so much to actually talk about. Scott has not been able to just divest himself to only think about random dad jokes.
They're coming.
But no, still a pretty good schemer. She's 7 cost. Expect her to kind of do the role that she was already in. And she does that support. She's good.
It's the second or third model in the crew with draw secrets on a ranged attack, which, helpful for scoring points.
Yes.
Very, very good. Considering you can only have 5 schemes and they come and go, being able to place them where they need to, the turn they need to, is great.
Yeah. It looks like hers on her melee, not the range, but still. Drawing them out without spending actions on it specifically is very nice.
A Mr. Graves that you actually want to put on the board. A non hurt your own crew Mr. Graves. Not a henchman, but honestly, since you can't stone as, and all that stuff for things for henchmen, not that big of a deal to lose that title. I don't think he was a henchman, but to not have that title and still be this big of a cost. Hard to kill, which is amazing with what Brilliance does right now, being able to heal. He goes down to 1, the next activate, and then you cheat and things, he goes back up. Bloody Brilliant, so no black blood, but the best fix ever, I think, was he just pulses out Brilliance.
Right. I think that's a great way to keep his theme of, black blood being his thing way back to when the, character was first introduced, but doing it in a way that isn't detrimental to your entire crew is pretty nice.
And then honestly, one of his front of card is probably the best part about Mr. Graves after playing him a couple times, because hard to kill, he's getting out that Brilliance, and then don't turn your back where you are stopping any model from being able to do the interact for their turn if they start there. So even Don't Mind Me, which is kind of a big deal again, shuts it down. So it forces them to move them before they activate. He shuts down a lot of scoring, he can tie down a point, and it's just good to tar pit and hold an area. Still got a damage 3 attack. Interrogate is great if you can get to going off, because it's a if not this, then do this. So if they don't discard a card, or if they can't, you're getting more cards. Builds into the Honeypot. And his signature to move, it's kind of very similar to what he already currently has, but this one has a trigger to be able to do damage and infuse a stone if you kill it. So if your opponent summons a random Daydream or has a low cost, low wound model near you, you got that nice ram, get yourself a soul stone.
He looks like a very solid model for 9 stones.
He's been in my opinion, one of the tankiest models I've seen in 4th edition right now. So if he stays kind of this way, he's not, extremely durable, but more durable than...
Hard to kill plus ping healing is always going to help you stick around a little bit.
Tannen, everyone's favorite don't come into my bubble model, doesn't have... what was that ability that everyone hates?
Boring conversation?
Oh yeah, boring conversation. Yeah. They got rid of that on him.
They get rid of things like that in most of the game. Basically, all those are token effects now, which I think is an improvement.
So again, we see Don't Bite the Hand, which I like, because again, it's focusing on that not being able to cheat and that whole cheat mechanic flavor. He's also got Delirium, so if you're not playing Lynch 2, this is your unpack, model. Getting everyone to be able to move. Him combined with Lynch, you can push almost all your models 4 inches if you really need to, or 8 inches. Kind of get up there. He is super supporty still. And in my opinion, kill him if you can. The reason being is the invisible hand and some of his shenanigans. His attack has inner glow, and his tactical has inner glow. He's a healer by ping healing. He's pulsing out Brilliance, and he can... That come play at my table has come into play more than once on his attack. Being willing to just do 2 damage to a model like Lynch or Gwen to throw them at, 6 inches, since place effects don't need line of sight. You can pop them all around, and then they can go beat face or go be where they need to be. So, he is very supporty. He's 6 cost. Anything that you guys have seen about him, or anything else you guys want to add?
Well, one of the nice things with being in a new edition, you don't have to worry about, when you're attacking your own models, flipping 3 severes, losing 3 good cards, and doing 6 damage to your own model.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And actually, since you relenting is a tie, and you do 1 less damage on ties, you can very reliably know exactly how much you're doing to your own model.
Oh, yeah. So, Correct. It's 1 damage to Kitty to place her 6 inches.
Assuming you're relenting, which there's no reason you wouldn't. So,
all right, we're getting into the minions now for Lynch. The Illuminated, terrifying 4. They've always had kind of a poopy terrifying stat, anyways, but it's still there. They got that don't turn your back as well, so great anti-scheming, anti-scoring. Shimmerlungs,
having that on multiple models adds up pretty quick, too.
Yeah, just give a big middle finger to those don't mind me models.
No worries. We won't maybe talk about Coppelius and how he can get locked down by a 6-cost little minion. But the Illuminated, they're good. They don't, if you notice, damage tracks have gone down. They're 2 damage base for a lot of things. They still have a tactical Shining Example. It's copied from another model, already in the crew, so that carries over. There's a lot of repetition in abilities, so you don't have to remember 10 different names of abilities within your own crew. That's why Shimmerlung's the same attack that's on Huggy.
And one thing this points out is the difference between signatures in 3E, or bonuses in 3E and signatures in 4, is on Huggy, Shimmerlung's is a signature. That's a characteristic of that model, not the Shimmerlung's action. So different models may have, an action be signature, not based on them.
Yeah, it does help them be a little more unique. It gives you that instant, like, hey, this is kind of what your model wants to be doing. This is what we kind of set them up to do. So if you don't know what to do with the model, take a look at what they're giving them for a signature. It'll kind of lead you in what they thought that it was going to be. So a mobile minion, because it's got a movement signature, kind of can get around, and honestly just kind of solid. Right in the middle of the road, 6-cost model. Beckoners, everyone's favorite call girls that aren't dead. Again, don't bite the hand. That's great. It's in a lot of models. Lure, 12-inch range. And if possible, to get them even further than their own speed, which if you target something with an 8-inch speed and has a brilliance with desperate need, you can move them that full 12 into your crew. So keep an eye on remembering that if you're playing into Lynch, your speeds are usually higher than they used to be, so that distance between you can close quickly. Then their signature is Deceiving Touch. If they have brilliance, first time we see it, the opponent can't cheat. So they have Don't Bite the Hand. You can't cheat in either direction if they're attacking you. So not bad. 5-cost. You don't need the world with them, but they are very good at what they do. All right. Our dual keyword. So you're getting kind of a sneak peek at also a key and gong here if you haven't looked at them. But Sen. Serene Continence, Reading the Room, Siren Song, and Backup Band as their signature. She reads very support to me. I will be honest, this is the one model I haven't put on the table out of everything we're going to see today. She seems interesting. Kind of a beefed up Beckoner in a way, because she's got Beckoning Call to move models around. She can do some discard effects. She's got some other movement. So in my mind, she's a beefed up Beckoner. What do you guys think?
Yeah, she also kind of supports Illuminated if you have them, because lowering the willpower on your enemies will make that terrifying 4 affect significantly more models. Willpower 5 is a pretty common stat across the game.
Actually, yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
So she's secretly a defensive model if you're using her a specific way.
So no, I mean, 7's a pretty good cost. It's not like super OP, but she seems solid-ish. I definitely want to give her a try. She's the one I haven't done, so I'd be looking forward to see what she does on the table.
I think any model that can move friends and enemies around, especially she can do it in multiple different ways. Movement wins games. So I think at 7 costs, you should at least think about it.
Yeah, and the Beckoning Call is actually, in my opinion, much better than Lure, because you don't have to pull it towards that model. You can pull it to one of your other models and even move it away from her, because if you have one of your models up the board, you can move it that way, as opposed to coming toward what in this crew is more of a squishier model.
Right. And you only need a 4 for it to go off. So
yeah, not bad. K.O.T.O, a size 3. Armor, the only model I think in this keyword that has armor. If you notice currently, it's once per activation. Less defense tech again. Armor is also only a 1 damage reduction. You're not going to see armor 2, armor 3 type stuff going on. So not a huge deal. If you see it on a model, you're going to think, okay, super survivable. It's not like going into Hoffman.
sadly.
Reading the room comes into play a lot with her music spell's tactical action, because she can get that focus token, and then for a 6 with a built-in crow, she can pass it out to another friendly model. A lot of support in a small 5-cost package, especially one currently that doesn't go down easy. Because if you take K.O.T.O and Sen, there's some extra healing between the two. K.O.T.O's got Drain Life, which has got healing, and she still is a Honeypot model, so she heals off with cheating with Brilliance. So for 5 cost, currently K.O.T.O does a lot. She might be sitting in the back, but she protects that backfield pretty well.
Yeah, I've found that in a lot of keywords, some of the costs have gone down just slightly. You know, Illuminated being 6 instead of 7, K.O.T.O being 5 instead of, I think, 6. I don't remember. It's been a little easier for me to fit in like 9 models instead of 8, which, you know, you get to play with more of your toys. That's cool.
Also helps when things die.
True that.
Built-in trigger on her music swells is nice because obviously you want to have Brilliance. So if you don't have Brilliance on yourself, you can copy it off a friendly model that's close to you. So that's adds more to that survivability to K.O.T.O.
Yeah, I think most people will see the reading the room and think you're doing it to give out focused, but giving out Brilliance is good too.
Yep.
The last secret sauce that you can do with her is first turn, have her take that prepare action that's in there to get like an adaptable token or a shielded token, and then use her music swells to start popping out that token. And if you never use it or if she never gets hit, she can keep passing that out over and over again. So building in suits with that adaptable token that she can hand out is also really great. So I think a big support package right now for 5 cost. So that is everything we currently have for Thunders. Knowing this, thinking back to the 2 Masters guys, which one would you pick for Kick the Can?
Would I pick? I would say I would go with the one that helps you with your unpack a little bit, just for the fact that you're going to want to kick the cans and move the models up and start getting ready for that turn 1 score. So that's the first version?
It's Wildcard, the title one. Yeah, I think ultimately you're picking between, do you want to convert Master AP into very efficient movement and score early, or do you want to just play beatdown, kill first, score later, which I think is harder to do now than in previous editions. So I think I would probably also go Wildcard, but the crew itself is pretty mobile, pretty schemy. So I feel like you could do it with either one if you really had a preference.
Any models in particular then you would be like drawn to bring immediately? Like, hey, doing this strategy, knowing the schemes kind of we picked were, you know, open to a lot of options. But for this strategy, anything you would take and be like, I know what I picked for this, so I want to hear what you have, because I'm going to leave it kind of, you have to go watch the battle report that we're going to do to know what I chose.
Scrolling back through the cards real quick, I think bringing Huggy with his Huggy 1 with his not quite an obey on top of Lynch 1's movement tricks, I think that those together, changing the title you are picking as well, or the totem you're picking as well, changes the math a lot, I think. So I think that solidifies Lynch 1 for me. And then obviously you would want to bring, you know, fast incorporeal flight Kitty to just be kicking cans all day.
Yeah, because she's just as annoying to kill in this edition as she was in last.
Although she's very killable. Everything is pretty much very killable. If you leave them out there or move them out there a little too early, they can go down pretty quick. I've had her one shot, like, second activation. You move a little too far forward, that misposition, and things go down.
I think I would also want to take some combination of Graves or multiple Illuminated and have them just running offense on enemy schemers, like whoever, you know, Kitty equivalent your opponent hires, probably, you know, Coppelius in this situation. Because making it so you just can't interact if you leave is a pretty strong ability.
Cool, because I know what I chose, and you'll have to wait to see how that all plays out. But we're going to start diving into that other half, and maybe we'll get to the Coppelius shortly. But I know we have a lot of purple currently on this podcast.
You sure do.
Yes.
We're outnumbered.
It's the correct faction.
Yeah, you can hear Trisha talk a whole lot more during this section.
We have a lot of other people going to be talking now. All right. You'll see we have a different crew cards here. Again, these are beta cards. This is just a different form of them. They don't have all the pretty stuff. So if they look a little different, these are still cards. Dreamer 1, guys. Why don't you start talking so I don't have to?
Okay. So Dreamer 1, his upgrade card, he has Feed on Fear. So basically, all the models in his crew get a plus flip when targeting models with a fright token. And we'll kind of dive a little bit into that now. So basically, there are a lot of actions and or triggers that hand out fright tokens. And in of themselves, they don't do anything. But as you can see on this version, fright token, target a model with it, you get a plus flip. And then they have a basic thing where enemy models that are successfully targeted by a magic attack, you automatically get a raise built into the action, and then the fright token is discarded. So two really good effects trying to get out those fright tokens. And then unique models get a tactical action, takes a soul stone, 4-inch pulse, need a 6, make all enemy models within range pass a 12 willpower duel or gain a fright token. And remember, fright tokens are either you have it or you don't. So it's not like you can get multiples of those. So two really good actions, or I should say benefits, that you get from having opponents with fright tokens. And also, if you notice in the reference chart, shadow layers, aka web markers, are 50 mil markers that you can put out on the board. And if an enemy model touches it, they get a fright token. Doesn't do anything else but that.
Well, they have to end their activation in base contact with it to get that fright token.
Right. It works different than hazardous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So may have done that wrong in our game, James.
It happens.
But it was our well, my second game, James's first game. So that can be
beta games are for learning. So if you mess up, don't worry about it.
Yeah. But and there's other things that your crew can do with shadow layers, but that's kind of what they do for the enemy crew. So we're going to go to the next part. So Dreamer Fast Asleep, or AKA version 1. So he has just two things. Incorporeal. One of the nice things about Incorporeal over Armor is that it's more than once an activation, but magic attacks ignore it, which seems to make sense to me. And then everyone's favorite diversion, 4-inch range.
Yeah, I'm not stoked that one made a comeback.
This is ridiculously powerful.
Yes, it is. He only has 12 wounds, which is a little bit lower than I think. Again, I haven't seen a whole lot of everything yet, but it seems like 14 wounds seems to be the standard for masters. And with him being a kid, he got to 12. And then he's got his cricket bat attack, so just your standard 2 damage. But it goes back to the thing where if there's allies around, he gets additional damage up to a cap of 2. And then one of the nice things to trigger that if he fails, that someone else can take a scratch action.
And if
don't
we haven't
forget about
already
you can still
said,
get raises too, yeah.
And if we haven't already said, allies are friendly keyword models, so
Yes.
it just takes up less space on the card to write ally than friendly nightmare.
Yep. Oh, I didn't want to think about that, but yes, that does save some space.
Save space, and it makes... There was a lot of complaints that I've already seen since the announcement is can we stop super friends? Can we don't want to just take all this out of keyword stuff, and that's always the best. You'll see a lot of abilities actually refer to allies, so it even more than just the keyword, still encouraging that in keyword play.
Right, and the crew upgrades go a long way for that too, because you only get those benefits if you have that keyword.
Correct.
I hate this attack.
The spicy one.
Harkening back to last edition, Twist Reality. Again, you get to target defense or willpower, 2 damage, and if you succeed, you just get a Daydream. Everyone loves Daydream, especially the second edition sculptors. They're cute, they're cuddly. Everyone loves a Daydream.
Yep. And this is a good example of like a rise on a magic action doesn't do extra damage, but if you have a raise on it, that's how many Daydreams you get. So if I beat you by 2 raises, I get 2 Daydreams summoned.
If you can live the dream and flip a red joker, which counts for 1 by itself, and then you might get 1 or 2 more, you could get all 3 Daydreams in 1 action.
Or just have a fright token. It's easy, actually. You flip low, you got a fright on you. I've seen more than once 3 Daydreams come out off a single attack.
Yep.
I don't remember. I did do that to you, Brian.
I prepped for this and played into this matchup a couple of times, and thank you everyone here who's played Dreamer into me. But multiple people have dropped Twist Reality and gone, here's all my daydreams.
Let me just hit the rare limit in one action.
Yep.
Luckily,
So-
they're peons, and they're easily dealt with.
Yes. Then a couple triggers. One, the opponent reveals their hand, and the other one, the target gets a fright token. And then signature action, just you give the target a fright token, and then if you use a soul stone, you can summon back Lord Chompy Bits. Because who doesn't love resummonable Lord Chompy Bits? I know I do.
Everyone plays against them.
And then his only tactical action, need a 5. Just look at the top 5 cards of your opponent's fate deck, discard what you want, and then place them back in any order with a reposition trigger. So he's really strong. He's what I played my first game with. Never used his cricket bat attack. He just kind of stand back and blasted things and summoned daydreams left, right, and center.
So when getting back into that, how easy it is to get 3 daydreams, so I've lived against this a lot. It's very easy with the signature to give that fright token for an automatic raise and peer into dreams to make sure I have a really low card on the top of my deck, and then twist reality with your high card to drop those 3 daydreams for what essentially is, your bonus and an attack and a setup. So you still have an AP left, you're doing damage and getting all your daydreams if you need them.
That last attack, you could cricket bat with those fresh daydreams. You're probably doing 4 damage with it.
Yeah.
Which,
Yep.
And they
that
may
puts
have
him
another
in,
low
like, Beater
card,
Master
so
class.
add in a raise in there.
Right.
Yep. And then he's speed 7, so he's super fast. He's really good, and you don't have to worry about summoning the weak daydreams because we'll get to them later on. They are extremely weak and easy to kill because you don't give them pass tokens when you summon, and if they don't activate, it's not a loss. Obviously you want them to activate because they can do some stuff, but it's not as big of a loss as it would be in 3rd edition.
And one thing for the players playing against Dreamer, we were just complaining about diversion, but it is not as oppressive this edition because, again, actions are not inherently bonus or signature actions. So it's kind of like having stun, where you can still take the action, it just costs you. Whereas diversion in 3rd edition meant you just can't leap, you just can't do your summon that's a bonus or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, it basically erases the lightning bolt, making the action not free.
Right. Which is very different from you just may not take it.
Yes.
So, speaking of Chompy Bits, everyone's resummonable Nightmare.
The Lord of Chomping. So he's terrifying 6. So unless you're willpower 7 or higher, you are on a -1 to every skill that you have targeting him. And then he has a demise where if you kill him, he hands out fright tokens to enemy models within an inch.
So he kind of reminds me of like 3E Ikirio, where you're going to summon him, suicide him in, hope he explodes on something important, bring him back.
Yep, exactly. That's what you're going to do with him because this edition it's even easier to bring him back than it was in last edition. So basic beater, 2-inch reach, does 3 damage with execute, frighten, which gives out the fright tokens, and a terrify bite. He's got the twist reality that allows him he can summon daydreams with a on your heels trigger because why not? And then he has a super good signature action where 8-inch range, target an ally. On a 6, you place yourself in base contact with said ally. So you summon your daydreams up the field, and he jumps to them and then beats the snot out of something.
So speed 6, 8-inch friendly teleport, another 8-inch on your heels. He's one of those I can get wherever I need to be models.
Oh, yes. Very much so. And remember,
8-inch.
His Dream Chaser, even though it's his signature, he can do it more than once. So if, let's say, you were thinking about doing Twist Reality to try to go for that on the heels trigger, if you're not looking to do damage, you just do Dream Chaser, assuming you have an ally there. So, yeah, that's what, with his base size and the model, an 11-inch teleport.
Yeah, it's a good 11, 12 inches.
Yep.
Yeah.
Plus a 2-inch range. So
Yep.
that's what, like a 14-inch threat range?
Seems pretty good to me. I like this model.
Surprising no one on this call.
I talked a lot about Thunders and how they seem to be, they're about that deck manipulation and kind of controlling things. You'll see as we keep getting into Nightmare, they are very, very mobile. I think that's the giant strength of their crew. Is their speed stat, if you're looking at them, is generally a little higher than everything that was in Honeypot. They have a lot more of these themselves being able to move a little bit further. So just keep that in mind as we go through how many of their speed stats and extra leaps and things.
One thing to note, when we talked about the Honeypot and Huggy, he had the resupply signature action where he had to draw cards, and we had kind of touched upon how a lot of the totems have that. So this crew, Lord Chompy Bits, does not have that. So he, in some ways, is looking at just from the totem aspect. He doesn't have that card draw that a lot of the totems do have. So that's one thing that is a detriment to this crew. They have pretty much, other than Dream or two who are coming to have no card draw. So Trisha, you want to go over some stuff?
I have to read.
Well, I could do it. You can do color commentary. I'll be the reader. Okay. So on Dreamer 2 here, he has the Dreamscape, which is when you declare the scratch action, you can discard a fright token on the target to deal +1 damage. So if you need a little bit of extra damage, boom, they got a fright token. Now you're +1.
The downside to this is it's when declaring.
Yes.
So you have to kind of plan to win the duel if you can.
You got to commit.
Yeah, because usually you want those fright tokens to stay on the models for other abilities that some of the models get.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you do. That is something you have to be taken into consideration. And then all the unique models get a tactical action. Again, it takes a soul stone. Need a 5. Target an ally, 2-inch pulse, 11 willpower duel, or they suffer 2 damage. And if they have a fright token, they're on a negative flip for that. So again, remember that negative flips, they can't cheat that. My games, I thought that values were a little low on their target numbers, especially when you consider the Honeypot. Theirs was a 14, but again, we'll see how that turns out. But then,
this one also does kill the target. So you summon in your million daydreams and then kill it with this model.
Yes.
Or with this action.
Yep. Thank you. I forgot that. Reading hard. So Dreamer 2, aka the Summoning Dreamer. So he has 2 new abilities. Coddled. If he's within 2 inches of an ally when attacked, enemy models can't cheat. And okay, I read that right. And then he has Contagious Nightmare. When performing actions, if this model is within 2 inches of a model with a fright token, he receives a plus flip. So kind of bringing back what he got in Dreamer 1. But obviously he has to be a little bit positioning there will matter, but still could get that +1. 13 wounds, so a little bit more so than the other version. He has 1 attack action, Endless Slumber, 8-inch magic attack, damage 2, either gives out a slow or fright token, and for each raise you have, the target has to discard a card.
So this is one where when I was talking earlier about remembering that attacks do damage, it is totally reasonable to read this attack and think all it does is the words.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was something in our game that we played the other day that I had to remember.
Yeah, and the discarding the card is on the number of races you have, so that's not an automatic thing on that. So
right.
So a couple triggers. He can teleport Lord Chompy Bits if he's within 8 inches to the targets. He can draw a card of a value of 1 to 5 from the top 2 cards of your discard pile. And remember, the cards that you flip. So if you're flipping more cards, let's say you're on a plus flip and you flip a 13 and a 5, that 5 will be in that discard pile by the time that trigger hits. So that's something to be aware of. They do have a pretty good timing on how cards go into the discard and stuff like that. So it's something to keep in mind. And then a Drought Seekers trigger, a signature action. You target an ally, place the target within 4 inches of its current position. So a little bit of a teleport there with a On Your Heels trigger. So Dreamer can go up there. And then if you want to, this is probably something you do a Daydream, you can place a ski marker and base contact with it. Then you get to kill the target. And then his summon. You summon a Nightmare within range, 8-inch range. And remember, we had kind of touched on this. When you summon, you flip the card, and then you decide what you want to summon. So you don't have to declare it beforehand. And then that summoner gets a flicker token. So flicker tokens...
It kills the model at the end of the turn, and notably, the other version of Dreamers, his Daydreams, do not get flicker.
Correct. So you basically get that model for one turn for it to do whatever it wants. And the nice thing is it doesn't come in with slow or anything like that, so it will get a full activation. And then on a trigger, you get to have a Daydream with a flicker token within 2 inches of the model you just summoned. So you probably want to get that mask, get that 2-for-1 summon model, and then get a Daydream alongside of it.
Yep.
So.
And on the summon, the core rules for summoning, you do come in with slow.
Yep.
Just for
you do? Okay.
Every summon comes in with slow, except for peons.
Okay.
But just wait till we get to Insidious Madness.
Yeah, Insidious kind of flipped that on their head a little bit.
Yeah, well, they're good boys.
The cool thing about this with, is you can empower for that mask. So if you, don't have, whatever the summon TN is of a mask and you want that Daydream, you can empower for it so that you're still getting that trigger.
Yep. Which would also give you a plus flip, so then you would have 2 cards to try and hit that target number that you're going for as well.
And you don't need a suit for the summon itself, which is super nice.
Yes.
I will say, after everything is said and done, that coddled ability on his front of his card, not being able to cheat when he's near an ally, he's always near an ally, so just expect to have to heart of the cards a lot of attacks on Dreamer.
Yep. Yeah, between the summoning and just having access to good cheap models, Dreamer's going to pretty much always be near a friend unless you are actively kidnapping him and bringing him elsewhere.
Well,
Not that
and
anyone
some
would
of
do that.
the abilities on him that say, kill the model if you want to do like the roused on Prod Nightmare, that feels less bad knowing that your summons are going to die at the end of the turn anyway.
Yep.
So you might as well use them to get things like points.
Points? Who wants points?
I don't know. I hear they're good.
Yeah. That's fake news. So
Chompy 2.
Lord Chompy Bits 2. So he has the same demise. When he dies, he passes out fright tokens to enemy models within an inch. And then if he's attacked by a model with a fright token, they do 1 less damage. And that, again, is not once per activation like armor. So,
and look at that stat line. 6s across the board.
Yep.
And he's also the first model that we've seen with the summon TN on there, that 11. So he's summonable, able to be summoned back.
Yeah. And honestly, again, in my one game, it doesn't seem worth it for an 11 to summon Lord Chompy Bits back when he's just going to die at the end of the turn. That's just me. But,
I don't know. It's a big, scary model in the middle of the board.
True.
If your opponent's clumped up, that auto passing out fright tokens when he dies is something to be aware of.
Yep.
And sometimes just having an execute within 2 inches of a bunch of models on its own is scary enough.
Yeah. So he has a 2-inch scratch, damage 2. If the target has a fright token, he receives a plus, and then he heals 1 on a successful attack with the execute. And then he has an 8-inch magic attack that does 2 damage, and hands out a fright token and move the target 3 inches. And then he may take a scratch action. So if you're shooting something relatively close, move it in and get a free attack. Seems pretty good.
Well, and it doesn't say that
reposition trigger as well.
It doesn't say that the melee has to be against the model he's targeting.
That is true. Yeah. But see, that's why we have you on here, Trisha. You help me out with these things. And then his 1 tactical action, which is his signature 2-inch pulse. You need a 6, and then enemy models in range 11 willpower duel or gain a fright token. So, not quite as offensive minded as the first version, but I think he has some different shenanigans that he can bring into the game that the other one doesn't have.
Yeah, I think if you were only looking at totem versus totem, the Chompy Bits V1 wins out. But in context of the crew and what the masters are doing with them, I think it's an interesting way to have the same model title versions for the totem.
Yeah, and especially since he's got his signature with this model is a lot better because you are realizing if you resummon him back, you want to do his signature to try and get out as many fright tokens as you possibly can, and force actions on your opponent to make decisions whether to pass those willpower duels or not.
Yep.
Yeah, the crew ability there, what they bring too with the extra damage from fright tokens, also starts adding up if you start getting all that fright out. Oh, everyone's favorite teddy bear.
Yeah, time for the big boy.
Yes, Teddy, his resurgence.
I'm also just realizing that he's versatile.
Yes,
He is.
yeah. I was just he is a versatile model, so you can bring him out of keyword without.
Honestly, I think you might.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty good. So terrifying 6 and regen, 13 wounds, cost 10, speed 7. That's the big one I like to see. Speed
Yes.
7. He's a fast mofo.
Like, he's very beady, but kind of deceptively schemy if he gets low on health.
And then, since we're talking about being fast, his signature action needs a 5. It's 3-inch range that he gets to place anywhere within range. And the built-in trigger is if he kills a friendly model within 3 inches of him, he gains fast. So all those daydreams you're probably going to be summoning in, another reason to kill them off to give Teddy fast.
Yeah, it's
Why would Teddy
5 inches
have
of
to-
movement and then an extra action on a model with a 9-inch charge threat.
Yeah.
Or maybe
Why-
an Insidious
Why would
Madness
you want to have
that
this model
got
have
fast too
Well,
and already
let's
win.
just look at his heavy claws. 2-inch range, stat 6, 4 damage. 4
And on a
honking
stone,
damage.
trigger, it is irreducible.
Yes, he has crit strike, so possible more damage there, especially if you're, let's say, discarding a ram to give him a plus flip and a crit strike built in. And then, since it's +1, if I'm right on this, if you get 2 rams in there, would that be crit strike +2?
Sure would.
Oh, so
And then you start accounting for raises or fright tokens if you're playing Dreamer 2.
Yep.
I mean,
Would it?
you can really stack.
Because it no longer says for each ram.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
It
Yep,
just
I
says
read
when
that wrong.
resolving.
Yeah,
Okay.
for E,
So-
remember you can't stone for suits, so you only usually, I think there's only one suit you can get.
Yep.
I don't think you can double up.
Okay,
Yeah, that's right. So max of 5 plus raises plus if you're playing Dreamer 2 a fright token.
yep.
Flipping the red Joker when you're attacking with him is deadly.
Yeah.
I think I figured out you could get like 8 damage with him on one swing.
Something
Flip
close
the
to
red
that.
Joker.
This is the if you have a little daydream you're willing to kill or something, it's reasonable to assume Teddy might one round a master. He's an incredible threat from
Yeah.
across the board.
And just an execute trigger in there too, and bowled over. So he's chock full of triggers. He's got an 8-inch magic attack that may target friends. Target is moved 5 inches away from this model, and then for each raise, he gets to move 5 inches with a delay trigger to hand out some slow. So, in all of my 2 games, I see no reason why I would not take Teddy.
Which is really nice.
Yes,
Yeah, someone who's
opposed-
been on the shelf for a lot of this edition. I'm
yes,
excited to see him back, even if I'm not excited to play against him.
yeah. So
And when you own every sculpt of Teddy, you want to be able to put them on the board.
I know. The only bad thing is you can't bring more than one.
Magical Malifaux Christmas Land. Teddy has a possibility of in one swing 9 damage.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean
It
that's
might even be 10 if he goes against a very low defense model.
maybe
like a
stack some
peon.
injured somewhere or get an impact token on him.
So
Yeah,
there
different
might
keyword.
even be a option to get the 10, but the red Joker to give you 3 raises, the crit strike, and discarding that fright token, 9 damage.
So Teddy is the new Seamus. I like that.
Well, and with his unnatural speed and his move 7, yeah, he's a big beater, and you could have him in the center of the board, doing beater stuff, or you could have him go after, small scheme runners and just murder them all.
Yep.
Oh yeah, any edge schemer that most people are gonna send one to each flank, they're going to absolutely melt. The downside is he's not the most defensible. Like I'd killed him quite quick in our last game because with that threat range, I knew I needed to. He's not a set and forget kind of thing.
No.
Yeah.
The terrifying 6 helps a lot, but he's only got 11 wounds. If he gets hit, he's going to get hit.
He's got 13. Oh, Coppelius has 11. Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought you were saying
sorry,
Teddy.
yeah. No, sorry, you're right. He does have 13 wounds, but that goes pretty quick if you're up against another 4 damage beater.
Yep.
Yeah. So next model is Coppelius, who's a henchman. Terrifying 6 as well. Don't mind me. 11 wounds. Again, speed 7. He's cost 8. He's got 1-inch scratch, deadly claws. It's only 2 damage, but he gets a +1 damage on a charge. And then he has an On My Eyes trigger, which is also +1 damage. And then moves the target 3 inches. So possibly even without raises, 4 inches. 4 inches. 4 damage if you hit the trigger. He's got a frightened token trigger, and then he has elect the wind trigger where he gets to move 5 inches, ignoring enemy models, which you automatically ignore friendly models. He's unhinged attack, range 6 magic, does damage 1. For each raise, an allied engaged with the target may perform an attack action, which is super good.
So if you have a
Draw
bunch of
secrets.
summons,
What was that?
so if you have a bunch of summons around something, you can target that with it and have 1 to 2 of them or more take attack actions.
Or, if they just happen to be next to Teddy, who wouldn't want to see Teddy get a 4th attack that turn?
For sure.
He's got a shrug off trigger, so you can remove a token, blank stare, discarding a card. The opponent gets slow and discards a card. And then, which makes him even faster with that speed 7, is Onward. So needs a 6, gets to take a walk action with a trigger for using a soul stone that enemy models he moves through, gaining a fright token, which is very helpful.
Yeah. Well, and especially with the Don't Mind Me, him being engaged doesn't matter. Like, he can still go do schemes.
Yep.
So you just have him onward through your opponent's entire crew with that stone trigger, and now everybody has fright.
Unless you're playing Honeypot, and then if you start engaged with half the models in the crew, you still can't interact.
Sure.
But
that's a bad time.
Yeah.
But it's starting to add up how many of these models have, decent attack that's if you have a raise, do this other thing. Those fright tokens start being pretty consequential if you know how to use them.
Yep.
Just
I do like him.
To touch on Onward compared to like shining example that Honeypot has, one key thing about Onward is it's taking the walk action. And if you're not used to it yet, we talked about all that terrain. There's a scale mechanic currently in the beta that if you take a walk action and end face to face with vertical terrain, you can then move up that terrain. So unlike other pushes and stuff, Onward has that walk. You take that action so you can also then move and go up terrain as that free bonus compared to like just a 5-inch push or a 6-inch push. So there is some benefits to having Onward compared to sometimes some of the other pushes and things that are out there.
And you could also use it to jump from terrain to terrain.
Yep. Yeah, in a lot of cases, it's going to be a downside because it doesn't let you break engagement for free. But if you have Don't Mind Me, you don't care as much about that. Correct. I think you still take some movement penalty, but usually
you get the movement penalty, but not the
no interact.
So Widow Weaver, who chef's kiss.
I love Widow Weaver.
Yes.
Widow Weaver for 4th edition.
Yes.
This model is very, very good.
Yeah. So she has Monsters in the Dark, where reduce all damage caused by models with a fright token by 1. Terrifying 5, 11 wounds, cost 8, and she's 5s across the board. So she has a 8-inch magic attack into the dream web, just base 3 damage. If you get a raise, you get to place a shadow layer marker within 6 inches of the target.
No, you place the target in a layer next to them.
Okay, my bad. And then she has an On My Eyes trigger, so on a crow, she can be damage 4 and then move the target 3 inches. I'll jump to her tactical action, her signature action. Base a 6-inch range, you need a 5, place a shadow marker, get the mass trigger. If you have an ally within 1 inch, you place it in base contact with that marker, and if it's the Bandersnatch can take a scratch. So that big, bad, beefy Teddy, another way to get him his big old Teddy butt up the board, or Lord Chompy Bits.
Not that he really needed it, but you've got ways to move him if you do.
Yes. Which is
and then why don't you get to Endless Nightmare? Because Teddy doesn't have to even activate to take swings.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Endless Nightmare, which is Widow Weaver's, I think, going to be primal action. Again, 8-inch magic attack. You need a 5 to get it off. You can do it to allies, or models with a fright token. Basically, it's an obey for a 5. Target
Yes.
takes an action chosen and controlled by this model, then remove a fright token from the target. So, yeah,
So if it's an enemy, you're only going to get that single obey because you're not going to get the fright token back on them.
Right.
But if it's an ally, like probably Teddy, you can do it twice.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's got a Siphon Life trigger, which obviously you're not going to do to a friendly model, but it does do +1 damage and then heals her 1. And then this is the one that has a trigger to make a shadow layer marker within 1 inch of the target. So, yeah, this is really, really good. I used this to great effect when I played against James, moving his, I think, speed 8 beater around the board. Although I may have cheated him because, I did cheat him because I took the fright token off and I moved him through a shadow layer marker and I thought I could put it back on, but that didn't work out. That was kind of cheating.
Trisha had a great time in our game yesterday telling Lohith to go talk to Damien with this, and Damien didn't appreciate that so much.
No, and red jokers definitely still feel like red jokers even without a damage track, because I ended up with
7 damage in 1 obeyed hit.
Yeah. And so that was 3 raises, because Loeth is a damage 4.
Yeah.
So 3 raises because of the built-in fright token 1, and then 2 from the difference.
Yeah. So it's super good. An obey out of 5. Weird if you're listening. And don't change it at all.
And obviously the sort of eye-catching bit is, oh man, I can obey my enemies, or I can get more attacks out of Teddy. Don't overlook how powerful it is for scoring points. Something like Kick the Can, if you just need that one last interact, I mean, that can very easily be funneling AP into more important areas of the board.
See, this is why you've won Adepticon twice, because you actually pay attention to how you can score points.
It helps.
This is just the beginning of 4th edition. I want to kill shit first before I word up.
All right. Well, yeah. Okay. So for those of you that are for some reason listening to this later and you want to actually win games now, that's how you can do it.
Yeah. So we got Serena Bowman's back. She is Disguise, works just as it did in the last edition. Demise Eternal, again, works the same as it did in the last edition.
She's still a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Not as much of one.
6 wounds, 5/5, speed 6, cost 6.
I love that she is speed 6 instead of speed 5.
Yes.
That 1 inch of movement makes such a huge difference.
Scott knows a lot about that extra 1.
Yep, that's what she said.
Well, and if you look across the crew, Widow with her measly speed 5, I think is the slowest model in the entire crew. Yeah, she is.
Yes.
The next slowest model is speed 6.
Yep.
So you really feel that over an entire crew.
Yeah. So she's got a Horrific Reality. It's a 2-inch ranged magic attack, and that can be a bit deceiving. Stat 6, it does 3 damage, but she can draw a range and line of sight from allies within 8 inches. So again, that 2-inch is a bit deceiving.
Yep.
And then for each raise, an ally within 2 of the target heals 2. So that's kind of her main way of healing stuff. It's got a crit strike pulled here and there, and a trigger to give out a fright token. And then her signature is Bottle of Painkillers, 8-inch range, needs a 5, ally only. Target heals 1 or may remove a token, and then a pulled here and there trigger. So,
and that being 8 inches instead of 3 is also very nice.
Yes. Yeah. I think her Bottle of Painkillers is actually better for removing tokens than healing, because compared to the other healing I've seen, that one is very, very weak. You're better to try and get the raises on her horrific thing and then paying out healing around models around the enemy. But I mean, if you're gonna heal, I mean, her signature, so you're gonna do it no matter what. But I think if you're looking for straight healing, that Horrific Reality, trying to get raises off of that is the way to go.
Don't forget that possible heal for a 6-cost model is coming on a 3 damage attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her attack is really good.
She's punching above her weight class in a big way, especially having crit strike possible. I mean, she's a real threat.
Yeah.
And can be doing that from pretty far back. Yeah.
Well, I mean, 8 inches plus the base size and then another 2 inches on that. So, I mean, if you're doing it off of Lord Chompy bits, you could be hitting something that's, in theory, 12 inches away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're hiding behind Lord Chompy bits, who she can see through, but the enemy can't see her. So, yeah.
Right.
It does keep her pretty safe. But yeah, you're not taking
I
her strictly
do
for just her heal.
I do agree with the token removal being kind of the highlight of that, because there's not a ton of token removal in the game, and there's a lot more things that are tokens than conditions that existed in 3E for condition
Yeah.
removal. Like for example, being able to remove fright tokens if you're playing against Dreamer is
Yeah.
potentially a pretty
Or
big deal.
yeah, I'll
Or
be
brilliance.
playing in this one here where I'll be playing against Honeypot and getting rid of brilliance on my models. Seems like it'd be a good idea.
Yeah, suddenly now you can cheat against those like Lynch models. That
Yep.
can be major.
So next one, Bandersnatch. So just used him once. Really enjoyed him in the game I did. He was a very good model for scoring me some points. So he's got Buffer Dreams. Basically, he can eat shadow layer markers within 2 inches of him to reduce damage by 2, but not to 0. And then Ethereal Web, so basically kind of like what his signature thing was in the last edition, but now he has to use a Soul Stone to jump to a Shadow Layer marker within 12 inches at the beginning of his activation. So a little bit of a cost involved, but I think, again, if it's scoring your points and or saving your Bandersnatch, you're going to do it every single time that you need to. So 9 wounds. He's, again, speed 6, 5s, cost 7. He's got his 1-inch scratch nightmare bite, stat 6, does 2 damage. You can draw a range and line of sight from a shadow layer marker within 6 inches. So again, some distance, keep them safe. And then with a tear off a bite trigger. Infested Nightmare is an 8-inch range magic attack, does 2 damage. For each raise an ally within line of sight, the target may move 6 inches toward the target with a mental trauma trigger and false suspicion. So basically, you get to take the target that you hit. You get to do basically an obey. So target takes an attack action chosen and controlled by this model. So you can't move it or anything like that, but you can, like if it has a range action, you could shoot one of his friendly models or something like that. So always a good thing. So follow they did have that in the last edition. His signature ability, 6 inches. You need a 5, put it out. Shadow layer marker. And then Dart Out is another tactical action. 6-inch range, you need a 6. Target an ally or shadow layer marker. Place this model in base contact with a target with a consume trigger built in. So he heals an equal amount to the target's health, then kill the target. So a way to get some health. Probably going to do that off of Daydream, which is not a lot of healing because Daydreams only have 1 wound for being a peon. But, if you're hurt, 1 wound could make the difference.
Well, and ideally, if you're playing Summoning Dreamer, you get something like an Insidious, and you'll full heal him because that Insidious is going to die anyway.
Yeah, that is, especially if they've already gone. Yeah, you could kill an Insidious or an Alp or whatever it is you summoned, and then get a full heal.
For being a built-in trigger that also lets you play 6 inches. I mean, it's a very mobile, very deceptively difficult to kill model between removing those shadow markers and being able to heal.
And you're going to make a shadow marker just about every turn with him, so you might as well make sure that you're keeping one within 2 inches of him.
Yeah. And then if you're having Widow Weaver, that's 2 shadow markers a turn, assuming you don't hit other things that can make them.
And since you're hard capped at 5, you should spend them at some point.
Yes.
That's better than discarding them because you tried to make a 6th one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I think next up we have some minions, Insidious Madness, with my favorite action in this crew. So, Insidious is incorporeal, so reduce damage by 1 from non-magic attacks. It has Flight, Soul Burn. So when this model activates, it may remove a slow token to gain a fast token.
So since they innately are summoned with slow, if you summon one, they're now fast.
Yep. So they're 5, speed 7. It takes a 10 to summon them, and they have 9 wounds. So they're Scratch, Spectral Bites, 1 inch, does 2 damage. Under pressure, so you move the target 2 inches away, and then Siphon Life. So very much similar to what they had in last edition. We'll jump to his tactical. Evading Leap is his signature. 6-inch range, you need a 6. So basically a 6-inch leap, but after you've done it, he cannot declare any attack actions. So if you do this, then he's strictly going to be moving and or scheming. But so just kind of a different type of leap on an already speed 7 model. So super fast, My favorite action is Disembodied Voices. So similar to his tactical action he had in last edition, but this one is a range 6 attack, magical, against willpower. So this action may draw line of sight and range from allies. So basically, if you can see really well, you can pretty much attack something across the board. So it doesn't innately do any damage, but it gives them a fright token. And then for each raise, you move the target 2 inches. And if that target falls, it takes +3 fall damage.
And
which
fall
is-
damage is innately irreducible, so that's
Yes.
4 irreducible damage potentially.
Yes. So,
Which is pretty good.
super sweet. Plus, then you push them off something, which means they probably wanted to be there in the first place. And since I think some of the schemes require models to be on top of
Yep.
Height
terrain,
2.
Yep.
Yeah.
You could be denying points. So, I can't wait till I kill a model with this. I almost killed a Beckoner with this the first game I played, but it
Yeah.
did not
So-
die.
I think this is a super cool model that shows off some of the like creative design space, because a hired Insidious is going to play completely different from a summoned one.
Yeah.
Even though they have the exact same card.
Yeah, because if you're summoning with them, you don't want to do evading leap to go scheme because they can't scheme. They can't do strats.
Yes.
But you could, gain your fast and then attack 3 times and then evading leap away to be into safety.
Or get him to somewhere where like a Teddy could jump to him to get fast, or something like that.
And whereas if you're hiring him in, you're probably wanting him for that, 6-inch place to go scheme.
Be a Flight 7 model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as summons, they're pretty incredible speed bumps. I mean, their defensive stats are nothing crazy, but they've got 9 wounds and incorporeal. So unless you have good magic attacks, given the fact that they die at the end of the turn anyway, if they're summoned, it's not really worth putting 3 or 4 actions into killing them. You kind of just have to let them be there and annoy you and hope you can move around them.
Yep.
I'm just a sourpuss because they're like a beefed up Kitty Dumont and they're a minion.
Sure. That's
It,
valid.
for scheming wise, they have more speed, a better placement, and they also have a thing to move things, but just not as innately built in. But also, Kitty's never killed my Huggy by making it walk off a building. I was
Sounds
sad.
like sour grapes there.
When James told me, "Oh, that kills it, right?" And I was like, "What? It's only yeah, Huggy's dead."
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is a super interesting model.
Yeah. So Stitched Together, which surprisingly I have not tried yet. They have their one ability. They have Demise, Haunted Dreams. So after he dies, allies within 1 inch heal 1. They are cost 6, 8 wounds, summon on a 9, speed 6, 5s across the board. They got a Deadly Claws attack, 1 inch scratch, stat 5, does 2 damage. If you charge, you do +1 damage with a trigger to hand out a fright token, and then the Rake the Eyes trigger, which works the exact same as the last edition. The Gamble Your Life action, which everyone remembers so fondly of Stitch in the last edition. Range 6 magic attack, stat 5, which is better than last edition because last edition was stat 6. Does 4 damage once per activation, so you can only do it once. If this action fails, Stitch takes 3 irreducible, and then for each raise, you get to draw a card and discard a card. And then
I like this version of streamlining Gamble Your Life. Like it's just kind of a good perspective on like what Fourth is trying to do. It still mostly does the same thing it did, but it does it with like 9 fewer steps that you have to understand.
Yes.
And in true Stitched fashion, I summoned one in the game that me and Cole played the other day, and immediately did 3 damage to myself.
Of course.
But hey, he was going to die anyway. Who cares?
Yeah.
Me, because I was trying to do 4 damage to you.
Fair.
And then his signature, Fiendish Gamble, range 6, just goes off, no flip, no nothing, enemy minion only. Until the end of this activation, this model's actions receive a plus against the target. Then this model may move 5 inches toward the target and take a scratch action. At the end of this activation, the target is still in play. This model suffers 4 irreducible.
So if you were a fan of Lone Swordsman for Thunders,
Right.
This is
What if we had
their version.
summonable Lone Swordsman?
I love that Stitched are summonable again.
Yes. Not only summonable, but the ability to do 4 damage on their Gamble Your Life.
Which in, perfect universe, you could Fiendish Gamble, get a free Deadly Claws, and then do another Deadly Claws and a Gamble Your Life.
Yep.
Most
All on
minions won't
pluses,
survive that.
or double plus if they have a Fright token.
Yep.
Yeah, they're excellent like scheme hunters. Not because they're particularly fast, but because they're probably going to melt anything in their cost bracket.
Yep. Then Elp. So they keep their signature made to kill. So once an activation, when they're placed, take a scratch action. Demise Uneasy. So same thing as Lord Chompy Bits. When they die, all enemy models within 1 inch gain a Fright token. Oh, I was doing that. I was killed when they died at the end of the turn. I wasn't handing out my Fright tokens.
Yeah, that's a pretty big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
I also didn't do that.
Yeah.
Beta games are for learning, everybody.
Yep. Stat 5s across the board. Speed 6, 7 wounds. Imaginary Claws, just what is scratch. Stat 5 does 2 damage. Target has a Fright token. He gets a plus flip. So if this is Dreamer 1, they would have 2 plus tokens. Or 2 pluses.
Yes.
So
it's a scratch
Puncture,
now, yeah.
grab on, so gives them a slow token, and then they end their activation, and then a trigger that if they kill something, you get a soul stone. And then they have the unnatural speed that Teddy has, so 3 inch place on a 5, so then that would trigger their unnatural speed again. So just kind of like your basic go-to summon if like you don't really have anything really in mind that you want to summon, and you can bring in one of these, and it's going to get still, even though it's slow, it's still going to get 3 attacks, assuming it doesn't die before it activates. So it'll get 1 when you summon it, 1 when you do the jump, and then 1 for its 1 AP. So
yeah, one thing with these guys that wasn't apparent to me reading their card, but in our game last night became apparent. We were playing the Raid the Vault equivalent. They go stand by the markers. These guys are pretty fast. Like they're speed 6 and then have a 3 inch place, which is about 4 inches with base. So they can move like 14 inches. She was able to, end of a turn, take this model that was still in her deployment zone and fling it across the board to go score a point.
Yeah.
I wasn't used to little 5-stone model having that kind of movement range.
Went from one table quarter marker to the other table quarter marker.
Yep. So, I mean, definitely worth a hire, especially if you're coming down to your last soul stones.
And with it being with the new like verticality of the game, I was able to avoid a whole bunch of engagements that
By jumping.
Yeah.
Yep. And then last model is our Daydream. He is a peon, which is our first model with a peon. So peons, for those of you who remember, I think they were in 2nd edition. Their main thing is that they only have 1 AP during their activations. They don't count for engagements. I don't think they count for scoring or anything like that. So basically, just something that you can have. So they do have an interesting demise. It's called Blink. So when this model is killed, it may remove a friendly scheme marker in its line of sight, and then you place that scheme marker in base contact with them when they die. So which is pretty cool if you really need to get a scheme marker in a place, and especially if you summoned it with the token.
Flicker token?
Flicker. Then you can move a scheme marker to where you need it to be, and these guys can move. They are speed 8.
Yes.
If you only get 1 walk, but I mean, 8 will probably get you close to where you need to go.
Yep.
Exactly. If you want to hire them, they are cost 2. So again, if maybe you're down to your last few soul stones and you're like, I'll take 1. They are only 1 wound, so someone looks at it, not even cross-eyed, they just look at it and it dies.
Yep.
It has a tactical action reminiscent of last edition. Need a 5. You can move it, target ally 3 inches. It has an 8-inch range. And then it has Bend Reality, which is the attack it had last edition. 8-inch range, magic attack, stat 4, can target defense or willpower. Just does 1 damage. And it has some interesting things here. For each raise, you can choose one of the below, and there's 3 of them. So in theory, if you had 3 raises, you could do all 3 of these. But that sounds like you need a red joker, and you don't want to raise a red joker on this action. So you can place a target in base contact with the Daydream. You can pulse out 1 damage to models within 2 inches of the target, or you can place a target on blocking terrain within 2 inches of itself. So
theoretically, you could place it on top of some terrain for the Insidious to then knock off and do a whole bunch of damage to.
Yep, you can do that. I think probably the best generic one would probably be to place in base contact with a Daydream, because you probably putting it out of a place it wants to be. Now, granted, the Daydream can't hold it there or anything like that, but especially if it's at the end of the turn, it's like a raid thing where they need to be standing there, and you were to get a raise, you can replace it with a Daydream, which could help deny some scoring. So
Yeah, positioning is definitely one of the things we talked about already for being really big and tactical in this edition. And for this little peon who, a little PTSD here, I don't even try to kill these anymore. they appear so quickly sometimes that I feel like it's almost a waste to spend an AP to kill one wound model. So it's that give or take of, does it really matter that it's there? But that bend reality attack can, accidentally kidnap your activated model and throw it right next to Teddy. Who knows?
especially Dreamer 1 can summon these guys like rabbits being birthed. First game I played, turn 1 against Brian, I did an action. I think I Red Joker Dreamer's attack, summoned 3 of them right around where his models were. He killed one, and then Lord Chompy Bits went later on in the turn and summoned it right back. So in one turn, I summoned 4 Daydreams. So,
and they don't do a lot, but if you don't respect that they can do some things, they'll sneak up on you.
Yes. I mean, and especially if you have hard to kill models, well, you're down to 1 wound, and then a Daydream comes along and just kills you. That seems like it would feel pretty bad. But yeah, it's a peon. It's not going to do a whole lot. Again, kind of like Daydreams were in 3rd edition, just kind of a pain in the ass.
So I have a question for the Dreamer players here who've been playing Dreamer for years and years. Barry is no longer a mechanic in the game. Full stop. It's just been removed, which was pretty core to how Dreamer played in 3rd. Do you think
even
you'll
in
miss
2nd?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because you would bury Dreamer when Chompy came out and vice versa. So for a long time, he's had Barry as a core mechanic. Do you think you're going to miss it with Bandersnatch being able to bury into models and stuff, or do you think they'll do fine without it?
I won't miss it.
I'll miss it. I mean, everyone knows I'm a Dreamer 2 fanatic. I'll also miss having 3 hands a turn.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's a new edition, new rules, new things. So I can remember fondly many happy times with Dreamer 2, but we need to look forward to the future and get used to this one. So I'm sure I'll have lots of fun games with this Dreamer. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll miss it because it was so fun being able to, Dreamer's over here. Well, now he's on the exact opposite side of the board, scoring me in snare and outflank and all those other fun schemes that we had. So
yeah, I definitely with Dreamer you'll miss it, but I was looking at Bandersnatch's card and seeing him on the table. He was every bit as squirrely as he was. I think they did a good job of translating it without actually having that mechanic.
And same with the Insidiouses, with the disembodied voices, being able to draw that range and line of sight from allies still kind of gives you that I'm not here.
Feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have very limited experience so far with the new stuff, but he seems pretty good. Again, he kind of gets in that core mechanic that the Dreamer crew had, that they were typically the faster of the 2 crews on the board, with movement shenanigans and just a higher speeds and stuff like that. And this seems to carry over from 3rd edition. Typically you are probably going to be the faster crew on the board.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are faster. I've played it a number of times now, but thanks for hanging in there, everybody. I know this is kind of a longer episode. Hopefully, today is the beginning of the open beta, so you can get home, maybe listen to this on your drive, because we have it in pod version and video version, and can get kind of psyched up. Hopefully, we've given you a little bit of knowledge of what to expect. If you still want a little bit more, I know we were trying to get that battle report out on Monday as well, so you can kind of, if you're still uncertain, get a view of what it looks like, to try to help out as well. But any last thoughts about 4th edition, guys? I know there's little things that'll catch you up, like shielded now can reduce to 0, and ties can reduce damage to 0. So you're gonna make mistakes. Things will change. Anything else, guys?
Big thing is give it a shot. New editions are scary. Having things you like change sucks, but having played a fair bit of it now, I think I'm very excited for it, and we've got several months of open beta to iron out what people don't like. So give it a good shot, but make your voice heard.
Yeah, don't take it at one game, because after playing Lynch multiple times, the first game I did with him, I was like, I really don't know how I feel. But then being able to get in, and maybe it was just that I didn't know fourth, maybe, whatever, but the second game felt a little different. Third game really felt like, oh, hey, like, I really get this now. This feels like the crew I know. This feels like Malifaux. So give it a good shot, like Cole says, but also don't give it just one shot. Don't sell it because that first experience might not go like you think it goes. That you might lose Teddy turn 1 and your master turn 2 because things are deadly now. Learn the game. It's fun.
Yeah. I think in their announcement that came out today of the day we're recording is speeding up the game. So obviously those first couple games probably aren't going to be sped up, and it may even be slower if you're a trusted veteran of 3rd edition. But just by looking at it with the reduction of card flips and things of that nature, I think once you get some games in, get the rules where you're not having to flip around, having to look at all the cards 3 or 4 times before you make decisions, I think you'll find that the game is much faster and that the depth is still there. But I think with this making it simpler, but still having the depth there, it will attract more people into the game, and not having that 4 to 5 hours playing a game, or 3, however long it is, especially when you're first starting out, and they can see improvement as they play, that their speed is getting faster as they get to some recognition with the game. So I think that's the main thing, is to try and make this game more open to newer players, especially even players who might be their first tabletop miniature game.
Yeah. Were we supposed to talk about what models you're taking for the bat rep?
Well, Scott's not allowed to tell us what he's actually going to take, but
Okay.
the rest of us can chime in on what we would take.
Well, Trisha, you're actually a Dreamer player. What would you take?
Can you remind me which strategy?
So
is
it's
it?
boundary dispute.
Oh, the
Kick
kick
the
the can.
Kick the can and flank.
Decide things. Honestly, I would probably take the non-summoning version of Dreamer for this one, and hire in a few Insidious, because they can, they have that leap, so they can kick the can, leap, kick the can again. And being able to summon in a bunch of Daydreams that, only have 1 wound, but they're not going to die at the end of the turn, because Fast Asleep version of Dreamer doesn't give them flicker. Just to bog down your opponent and make them have lots of little gribblies to deal with.
You've also got the scarier version of Chompy, which isn't nothing.
Yeah, you got the scary version of Chompy. You have Teddy, who's gonna be able to move 7, be able to place, and still be able to be big and scary wherever he's at on the board. So he can be pretty efficient, whether you need scheming or murdering. And again,
in Dreamer 1, you get faster Chompy too. But...
Yeah.
Yep.
You get faster Chompy. Coppelius is very fast. The Spider Twins are still the Spider Twins.
Spider Twin powers activate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as good because Widow doesn't also get to place, but she's going to be in the backfield spamming obeys anyway, so she doesn't need it.
She could theoretically place herself with her when she makes a shadow lair, because it's an ally within 1 inch of the model. She's an ally within 1 inch of herself.
True that.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Thank you, Trisha.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that came up in the game with James and I. He sent her up the board with her own action. But I guess we'll find out in the battle report what you actually choose, Scott, and if you go down in glorious defeat.
Well, I haven't yet decided what I'm going to take, but now that you said that about the Widow Weaver placing herself, I think I'll be putting her in there on top of,
Real talk, I think with the rules as they are today, I think she's auto-take regardless. That Endless Nightmare Obey is just...
It's so good.
So powerful.
Yeah. And
expect that to change. I want that to change.
Well, it might. We'll see.
Well, target number's too high. Yeah, it needs to go down to it. She needs a 4. She needs a 4 to get that off.
Yeah, make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think just make it only be able to target friendlies once, and we're cool.
Scott just needs the handicap, so.
You don't want Teddy to be able to hit you twice?
No, I don't.
Teddy can get 7 out of activation attacks if you play your cards right with the dreamer it seems. That's what it feels like.
As he should.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day.
Third edition.
That's true.
James, you want to see us out?
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening. I'm super excited for this new edition. I hope everyone else is too. Give it a shot and let us know what you think. Catch you next time.
Thanks to Wyrd.